Hey everybody. So, video games used to be mysterious. Alright, that's kind of a weird thing to say. What I mean is that in the earlier but still modern age of video gaming, games seem to possess a certain air of mystery and unease that isn't often seen today. I'm not talking about mystery or intrigue intentionally designed by the game developer. There's plenty of excellent examples of that existing today. No, I'm talking about unintentional mystery. Strange phantasms that appeared in the dead of night when you were the only player online. Bizarre in-game events that you had no explanation for, that you shared with your friends but over the years eventually forgot entirely. Urban legends of the modern digital era. Very often these followed a similar pattern. An in-game bug or unfinished feature produced uncanny results, which were then shared through forums and word of mouth, and eventually became rooted in the legends and folklore of that game's community. These were particularly prevalent in the aforementioned early days of online games because, well, you'd have a lot harder time looking something up and explaining it away on the still developing early 2000s internet. And as a result, communities would often take these unusual stories and run with them, choosing to adopt them as unofficial mythos, rather than attempting to understand how they worked. And it was from this environment that we would get some of the most infamous gaming urban legends of all time. GTA San Andreas' Bigfoot, Fallout 3's Number Stations, and even Minecraft's Herobrine, who I've discussed at length on this channel in the past. And naturally, the Halo franchise, over 2 decades old and one of the most renowned FPS titles of all time, would not be immune to urban legends of its own. Let's take a look at a 15-year-old myth that described mysterious pseudo-players who would inexplicably enter Halo 2's multiplayer maps and disappear without a trace. Let's take a look at the ghosts of Halo. The Halo series of games is one of the oldest first-person shooter franchises to still be running today. It's been a significant presence in the console gaming community since the release of the original Halo Combat Evolved on November 15th of 2001. The first few titles in the series were produced by American developer BUNGIE, who were acquired by Microsoft soon before Combat Evolved's release, causing the game to be one of the original Xbox's launch titles, a trend that's continued ever since. Halo's popularity at this time can't be understated. It received almost completely universal acclaim and was considered to be the most successful launch title of all time following its release. So it only made sense that a few years later, on November 9th of 2004, a sequel would be made. And it is with this sequel, the aptly named Halo 2, that our urban legend begins. Great fanfare surrounded Halo 2's release. A successor to one of the most acclaimed games of the new millennium, Halo 2's marketing even featured a promotional campaign centered around an early ARG of sorts, entitled I Love Bees, but that's a story for another time. After going public, the game saw, once again, a great deal of praise and was deemed yet another success for BUNGIE. One of Halo 2's strongest features was its multiplayer. Online multiplayer was, at the time, still an inexact science. LAN parties had existed for a good deal of time by this point, but the idea of a centralized worldwide multiplayer gaming network was something that game developers were still ironing out. Halo 2 sped this along considerably. Rather than featuring the standard serverless system most games of the era had, in which players manually select from a set of servers to play on, Halo 2 featured something called matchmaking, in which players were automatically assigned to multiplayer matches based on their preferences, chosen game mode, and skill level. The game also featured a clan system, improved lobbies, and other elements that would become standard fare for multiplayer games of the future. And it was because of these revolutionary additions that Halo's multiplayer was exceedingly popular. Running off Microsoft's Xbox Live network, Halo 2 competitive matchmaking was a popular pastime for hundreds of thousands of players all across the globe. This coincided with the rise of YouTube, allowing Halo competitive players to upload gameplay highlights, scripted machinimas, trick shot or trick jump videos, and much more. So it made sense that sooner or later, someone would uncover and subsequently upload something unusual. It began on July 28th of 2006. A YouTube user named AfroSauce, capitalized like this, uploaded a since-removed video entitled Ghost of Lockout. According to Afro, the video had been filmed by a friend named Anti-Noob. In the video, Anti-Noob can be seen jumping around during a match with another player named Underdog on Halo 2's popular map, Lockout. The video's iconic 2000s-era captions state that the two friends had been playing on the map when Underdog went AFK, at which point another player strangely joined the map. But something wasn't right. As can be seen in the clip, the player wears unusual white armor and appears to have no walking animations. The player glides eerily across the map without ever turning or acting in the way a normal player would. What was stranger was the fact that the player could not be seen on the server's player list, had no name tag of any kind, and when killed by the mysterious entity, the game didn't even seem to register it as a kill by any specific player, but rather an unexplained or environmental kill. As the 2-minute video plays out, we see the entity kill both Underdog and Anti-Noob several times before vanishing just as mysteriously as it appeared. This entity was soon dubbed the Ghost of Lockout, one of the first ghosts of Halo. Rampant speculation abounded. The uncanny behaviors of the Lockout ghost were remarkably hard to explain. Theories were made pinning the ghost as anything from a mod to an unusual player to a simple hoax perpetrated by Anti-Noob. But as Halo 2 was still relatively new, and the internet wasn't nearly as good at explaining phenomena like this, an explanation seemed just outside of players' grasps. And this first ghost sighting soon became one of many. September 21st of 2006 saw another Ghost of Lockout video, uploaded by a YouTube user named Meaner Strongbad, supposedly featuring gameplay by user Zyklon B, illustrating yet another ghost haunting the pathways and buildings of Lockout in a similar manner to Anti-Noob's ghost. These two videos were spread around the internet as quickly as a viral video in 2006 could, and the ghosts were soon being discussed on forums and boards as users described their own similar experiences. It seemed this wasn't a new phenomenon. It had been noted for months before, but these videos brought the idea to the forefront of the community's vision. And the coming year would bring this vision into even sharper relief. 2007 was a significant year for the Halo franchise. Halo 3, the final of the original games to be made by Bungie, was released on September 25th of 2007, bringing the original trilogy story arc to a close. And with this, the franchise grew even more popular, and alongside it evolved a relatively new and unique style of visual storytelling that had found Halo to be an exceptional medium. Machinimas, short narrative films made through gameplay footage, became extremely popular around this time period, and Halo 2 and 3 were primary vectors for machinima production, most famously with the Red vs. Blue series that had been running for several years at that point. And with the rise of machinima came another confounding factor in the Ghosts of Halo case. As the ghosts became rooted in the Halo community's collective consciousness, machinimas featuring them began to be created as well. These caused a good deal of confusion and misinformation. Someone would see a machinima featuring a ghost, like Hollywood Halo's Ghost of Turf, uploaded January 24, 2008, and speak about it to their friends. And then, somewhere along the way, the idea that the video was in fact staged would be lost in translation. People would very often confuse actual ghost sightings with narrative machinimas, and this even further cemented the idea of Halo's ghosts in the minds of players. In Halo 3, ghosts continued to be spotted. One sighting on 3's map Blackout and another on Sandtrap were uploaded by Project Moz Studios and General Kid, respectively, in April and May of 2008. In each of these videos, the ghosts continued to act in an unusual manner, sliding around and bearing no name tags or simply holding entirely still, before inexplicably vanishing without a trace. With the sheer quantity of sightings being made every month, and the fairly solid evidence that no foul play was involved, it was clear that the ghosts of Halo really were out there, and that one ran a fair risk of encountering them if they played an online match. But how could this be possible? Was it a glitch, a secret game feature, or something else entirely? Well, as we would soon find out, the ghosts of Halo may very well have just been the players themselves. Halo 3 had a very interesting glitch. It was called overloading, and it was essentially done by causing an inordinately large amount of objects to spawn in a map, taking up a considerable amount of memory, and forcing the game to unload certain aspects of a map in order to stay functional. This was one of several major glitches known to be present in Halo 2 and 3, and even more glitches came into play when online matches over networks were considered. You see, inherent to the idea of online multiplayer are network glitches. If packets of data aren't sent properly or are misplaced somehow during gameplay, some multiplayer features won't work exactly as intended. Halo multiplayer, as one might expect, fell victim to this as well. If a player were to join a public match, but a network error prevented certain details of a player's location, behaviors, statistics, or otherwise from being sent to the server, the game would, on occasion, simply fill in the details. This was the root of the ghost phenomenon. When players experienced network errors such as this, they would almost always be disconnected from the match. But rarely, if the conditions were just right, they would remain in the match, having strange characteristics that made them seem unusual to an unaware observer. A player experiencing these errors could have no visible gamertag, a lack of movement animations, or unexpected connections and disconnections. A kill by such a player would likely be counted as an environmental or miscellaneous kill. In other words, a player affected by a network glitch could become a ghost. And that, in the end, was what they were. The ghosts that seemed to haunt the multiplayer maps of Halo 2 and 3 were, in all likelihood, nothing more than ordinary players affected by network errors. When Anti-Noob spotted his Lockout ghost back in 2006, it was likely nothing more than a skilled player who happened to be experiencing connective issues, leading to their strange movements and lack of identification. But even after this information was known, it didn't really change much. You see, the idea of Halo's ghosts was still out there, and it didn't really matter if they were real or simply caused by a network bug. They had been ingrained in the early community mythos and lore for Halo's online player base, and even today, nearly a decade and a half later, there are still those who remember them fondly. A distant but compelling urban legend from the earlier days of multiplayer gaming. And with that, we end the tale of the ghosts of Halo. Thanks for watching.